Right then folks, we are at the beautiful Cudmore fisheries today on my favourite lake in the world, Drumble Lake, because it's probably my favourite time of the year as well folks. Springtime, just coming into early spring, the sun, it was out before, it is coming out, I'm starting to get tanned, I'm starting to have to put ambre solaire on all over, and it's that time of year when everything's eating, because the next thing on the agenda is spawning. So what we're going to go through today is that early sort of like spring fishing, targeting pretty much everything swimming, but on sort of like a budget if you like. So, you know, cutting back, but having more than enough bait to do the job. You know, sort of like your pleasure sessions, if you've only got a few hours left, you know, when you finish work and that, you know, I'm going to show you how to get the most out of the bait. So literally all we're using is we've got micros, we've got comb, we've got worms, and we've got the worm ground bait, the Sonubaits worm ground bait. Before I talk you lovely lot through the rig and everything, the first thing I want to do is get some bait in to get them lovely fishes into the peg. So what I'm going to do is I'll put a few micros in there. I'll talk you through why we're doing all this in a sec. Put a few bits of corn in. Literally all I've got in there, it's all like, almost like a bit of a bomb. Jakey's getting in on that, bit of a worm bomb. Let me open that out for you. You in on that, Jakey? Yeah, so I've got a few bits of corn in there. The ground bait's really overweighted again. We're going to go through that in a sec. Got a few bits of worm in there, really minced up, and just a few micros in there. No loose feed at all, just everything's going in. Give it a little bit of a, so it goes straight down to the bottom, and it's going to break out pretty quick. Now, just wait for this car to go past so we can ship out. Not fishing far out, as I say, it's just like a lovely day's fishing today. Nothing taxing, not fishing like 16 metres into the teeth of a gale or anything like that. Really going sort of like 8 or 9 metres out. I've lined up with the tree opposite. I've got my mark on my pole here, halfway down my box, literally there on that tree, and I'm just gonna plop that over, and that's it, straight down to the bottom. So that's my swim fin. I'm gonna bring the pole back that way, just in case we get any more cars coming down, and then I'm gonna talk you lot through the rig. So one rig does all today, folks. Now, I suppose it's typical of open waters. I've got sort of 5 foot where I'm fishing, 8 or 9 metres. It's gradually going off a little bit more. I do know this lake pretty well. I know that if I went, you know, another 2 metres further out than where I am, the lake flattens off at around 6 foot. So it's just a nice gradual slope. I've only got literally sort of 2.5 foot from my top kit. So it is quite a gradual slope out where we are. Typical of your lakes like this, I suppose, folks. I'm just fishing a nice comfortable distance. I want to catch on the bottom, so I've got a rig that's going to enable me to do that. Obviously, you know, don't get me wrong, as soon as it starts warming up even more, or, you know, certainly if you're down south where it's been warm for like ever, it never gets cold down there, you're going to catch shallow, so maybe do another rig or two. But for what we want to achieve today, this rig will do everything. So first things first, elastic wise, 9's Duraslip, folks. I absolutely adore this stuff. Now, bearing in mind there's some right big wobbly carps in here. I mean, they go up to sort of like 20 pound. They're huge. They don't get caught that often, and they're immaculate, angry things. And it don't bother me using a nice soft elastic like this, because at the end of the day, we're just coming out of winter. They're still a bit sluggish. I mean, I've said it now, I'm going to up one that's going round behind the island, isn't it? But they're still a bit sluggish, and the beauty of a light elastic, they just don't fight nowhere near as hard. Plus, because we are on a bit of a species hunt today, you know, catching everything swimming, which is the beauty of worms and the worm ground bait, I don't want to be bumping the smaller fish like roach. There's loads of hybrids in here, big heads, skimmers, bream, crucians, tench, goujons, perch, everything. There's all sorts in here. So I don't want to be bumping them fish, folks. That's why I'm using 9's. Gone are the days where I'll be using like the 7's or single 6's, single 8's, things like that. It's warming up a little bit too much for them, so I want a bit of backbone in the elastic, but enough softness in the elastic that allows the fish to swim out of the peg and I don't bump any fish. So coming on to the rig itself then, 0.18 mainline on absolutely everything from now on. From now until, I'm going to say, end of September, early October, 0.18 mainline will be on all my rigs. 0.20 for the margins, but we're not in the margins, are we? We're out there, so 0.18. You'll see I've plumbed it up. I'm going to go through plumbing up with you as well in a sec. Back shot as always, sort of 4 or 5 inches above the float. Length of line, pole tip to float, again, you know from all the videos that we've done before, don't like ever going really short. I don't mind going a bit longer, but the colour of the lake today has got quite a bit of colour in it, so I'm going to go a little bit shorter so we can get into them pesky Crucian bites. Obviously you've got to be nice and quick on them. Float wise then, so I've gone for your typical all-round float. It does all my fishing, this particular pattern, F1 maggot or F1 pellet. For what we want to do today, it's not going to make a blind bit of difference. I've gone for an F1 maggot because I know from this rig, I used it on a peg a couple of pegs away a couple of weeks ago, and I know it's there or thereabouts the right depth, so I'm like, I'm going to get that one out again. I have changed the up length though, folks, I do promise you. So 414s. Now why have I gone for 414s? 412s for me in how I'm fishing today, putting little balls of this ground bait in with worm, it's going to take too slow to get to the bottom, and chances are it's going to get intercepted by little babby fish. Not so much when you're not loose feeding, but see, I told you the sun was coming out, but potential for getting interrupted by little babby fish on the drop. I don't want that. I want to get straight down to the bottom where the great big wobbly things are. So 414s. I could quite easily use the 416s as well if the wind was probably stronger, or you know, it was a crosswind with lots of undertow. 100% I'd go into 416s, but for today's purpose, 414s absolutely bang on. So it's, well, you can see there, 60 inches, that's 5 foot, and we're probably, well, when we're plumbing up, you'll see we're at the bottom of the body, so we're a good 1.5 to 2 inches over depth, which is something I'll always do, you know that, folks. Little tiny number 12 trimming shot just under the float, just to really drop that float down, because you do get into them Crucians, folks, that are in here. They're like blooming F1s, are an absolute nightmare. Now coming down to the business end, so in fact let me hook that back up so you can see where I've got that bulk shot in relation to the top kit. So you see there, in on that, JK. So obviously there's 12 inches, so my bulk of shot is around, starting at 13, probably finishing at around 14 inches, and they are number 9. So we've got 6 number 9 shots, not stots, because I'm expecting quite a few fish. I don't want to be fiddling around and moving my stots back into position or anything like that. That's why I'm using shots, they don't move. And then coming down to sort of like, what's that, 5 inches below that, I've got a number 9. And then 5 inches below that, or 4 inches below that if you like, I've got another number 9. So no need for like obviously your tapered shotting or anything like that. Just get job done straight down to where the fish are, number 9s. If I was on a 416s, the only difference, they'd be number 8s and they'd be number 8s as well. So that's all you're doing. Obviously you go up a size, just change the size of your shot. Get straight down to them. Now what is interesting, I'll show you in a sec what I do, is the hook length. Obviously I'm a straight out of the packet one now, folks, you know me. So this is a 6-inch hook length but trimmed down to 4 inches. Now if it was sort of like just skimmers I was after, or roach or something like that, it wouldn't bother me at all putting a 6-inch hook length on, because I'll be fishing over depth anyway. The fish are on when they have that bait. But because there is quite a few Crucians in here and sort of like brown goldfishy things, they are notoriously obviously fickle biters. That's why I've trimmed that down. And all I've done, so basically, is one of these SFLBs. So we're not on like the proper strong angry hooks yet. It's a 16s SFLB. GPM's another few weeks off them yet. So literally straight out of the packet, you can see where they've gone, and all I've done, I've put them, you know them, Jakey, I've tied them to 3 and 4 inches, which is perfect for pretty much all your scenarios this time of year. As I say, you get away with skimmers and roach and this, that and the other, but for these species of fish that we're after today, certainly the shy biting Crucians, then you want to make sure that your hook lengths are that little bit shorter. So I think that's the rig's talked over. I think what we need to do now is, obviously this bait didn't get like this, you know, I have prepared it first. So that's the first thing you want to do when you get to your peg, is prepare it. So I think we need to talk that through now, and then we'll go and catch some fishes. As I've been demonstrating them, folks, bait, lovely and simple. So what we've got a 2 kilo bag of ground bait, which, yeah, you can get a lot out of it. You know, obviously for a session like this where we're aiming to catch everything swimming, I'm going to measure an equal pint of ground bait out in one of these tubs, and then it's literally sort of 3/4 water on top of it, leave it to settle. I'll show you how to do that in a sec. We've got a kilo worms, which, if you're anything like me, they'll last you a good 4 or 5 sessions. All I'm going to get out of there is sort of not even a 1/4 kilo worms, just a sort of like a nice handful, if you like. You know, you've got lots with the hook there, a few that I'm going to chop up or mince right fine, so I can just add them every now and again. I'm not going to put them in all the time, as you've been seeing, because, you know, possibility of attracting too many little babby fish, perch and goujons and stuff like that. Obviously, my favourite salted caramel micro pellets, absolutely adore them, folks. The beauty of adding micros to the mix, obviously it's going to bulk the mix out a little bit, but it just keeps fish grubbing around for ages. And certainly species like Crucians and Tench, they absolutely adore them little particles, them little pellets. And I'm convinced, like, obviously with the flavouring on, that makes a massive difference for the likes of Tench and skimmers as well, like, but certainly Tench and Crucians, you know, they do come into that. Obviously the absolute liquid flavour that I'm going to add to the water, and then we've just got some corn just to keep fish in the peg, basically. Obviously corn being a heavy bait, it's going to go in. I'm not going to put loads in, again, just into my mix. I'm probably put 4 or 5 grains of corn in every now and again. That'll get down to the bottom and just keep fish, you know, in the peg kind of thing. So obviously a heavier bait probably attracts some bigger fish as well. Right, waffling over with, let's get down to the bait. So worm fish meal then. Now why do we choose this? Obviously the dark colour's amazing for one, but it's got all them lovely sort of like amino acids in there as well to attract the fish, keep them grubbing around. It's phenomenal bait, this, folks, it really is. And as I say, a 2 kilo bag will last you ages. So what we're going to do with that, level out a pint. It smells, honestly, folks, it smells amazing. So pint, let's get a bit more in there actually. So there we go, roughly a level pint of ground bait straight into there. Now with the water, what I like to do, I do like to put a little bit of flavouring in. So what I'm going to do first, get me a little bit of flavouring in there, and then I'm going to go in. Now it's important that you measure this out right. You don't want a full pint, you want roughly about 3/4. What I have done in some of the other tubs, I've not done them with these new ones, I actually put a marker on the inside of the tub, so I know exactly. You know, obviously over the years it's trial and error kind of thing, folks. So over the years you get to know how much water to put with it, but it's roughly sort of 3/4. So I've got 3/4 in there, thereabouts. That should be bang on. Obviously it's got all the loveliness of the you know, of the absolute liquid flavour in there as well, tiny bit more in that. And then this is a simple bit, folks. That's it. Just give it a little bit of a, I'll show you in the camera. So it looks like you've ruined it in one, but honestly, folks, you've not. It'll be absolutely perfect if you just make sure it's mixed around and then just leaving that. That's going to take, I'll get that out of the way for you now, that will take a good sort of 30-40 minutes to get right though. So as soon as you get to your peg, make sure that's the first thing you do, then obviously you can go about setting everything else up. The other thing we've got is some corn, so I'll put that into a tub. Now you can see how much corn there is in one tin. Yeah, loads, sort of like a good 3/4 of a pint in there. Then bearing in mind all we're putting in every time, or well, not every time, you know, every other go, suppose, and obviously trying it on the hook as well, it is that much. But obviously with it being weighty, it's going to draw them bigger fish into your peg, but keep fish into your peg. F1 corn, superb stuff. And then the other thing is the micro. I'm going to show you how to prepare them. Dead simple. Now again, you know, a bag like that, I'm not going to fill that tub up. I'm going to sort of like half fill it, and then there's so much bait content in that. Honestly, that'll last you a good few sessions. So literally, well, not even half. I'm just going to sort of like between a sort of like a quarter and half fill that. That's all. Now the most important thing with this, similar with the ground bait, you've got to prepare it as soon as you get to your peg. So again, I'm going to use that water. What I want to do with these is completely soak them. Yeah, so just make sure they're completely soaked like that. So the water's just peeking up over the pellets. I don't know if you can get them on that one. You get them on that one, Shaky. Yeah, so the water's just peeking above the pellets, and again 30-40 minutes, they'll be perfect. What I don't like to do, what I used to do back in the day, certainly for this style of fishing, was put all the dry ingredients together and mix them through. But now I like to combine it as I'm fishing, as you've been seeing. I like to pick up a few micros, put them in a mix them through, and then feed them that way, because you control, you know, the volumes of bait that you're putting in then. And then the main thing, folks, is obviously the hook bait. So as I touched on briefly before, a kilo worms, it does go a long way. Obviously this style of fishing today, it's all about, you know, catching everything swimming, springtime. You know, the best way of catching fish for me is by catching them on worms. You know, when they're sort of like starting to think about spawning, they absolutely adore worms. They, you know, lots of rich flavour, proteins in them and all that. It just catches everything swimming. You have a lovely day's fishing. So a kilo worms, where's my scissors gone? A kilo worms, you know, will last you a good at least 4 or 5 sessions. I say we're not putting not putting loads through the mix. I'm going to chop them dead fine, but all we're getting out is just literally a good sort of, not even a quarter of a kilo. Just literally, I mean, all the worms will bed into a corner. Literally that's all we're getting out. And I'm going to put a little bit of soil on them as well. And that for me is all we need for a lovely day's fishing. You know, a lot of these sessions, certainly when you're pleasure fishing, you know, maybe after work, because obviously the light's amazing now. It's not going dark till sort of like 8:30 at night. You might only have sort of like 2 or 3 hours or something. This way of fishing, you know, sort of like on a budget, if you like, you're going to have one of the best days fishing ever. So yeah, get on it, folks. Let's get back to the fishing and see me all snarled up in all things fishy. Yeah! Dead simple, that bait, innit, folks? And look how much you get from just a pine. It's absolutely ridiculous. That'd do me in like a 5-hour match, never mind like a 2 or 3 hour morning or evening session. Loads and loads of ground bait there. My calls, obviously, they fluffed up, absolutely lovely. As I said, I don't want to mix them straight in with the ground bait. I want to give myself options. Worms wise, literally all I've done is just taken literally sort of like a pinch out of there, that much, put them into a tub and really mince them down. Literally all I'm going to be feeding is sort of like that at a time. Not all the time either. The trouble with like putting too much of that in, because it's so rich and obviously all the lovely aminos in it, it's kind of trapped too many small fish. And then the last thing is obviously the corn. 4 or 5 bits of them, that's all we're going to be putting in. It's phenomenal. I can't wait to get going. But before we do, I forgot to talk you through plumbing up, didn't I? So let's go through plumbing up first, and then we're going to catch some lovely fishes. So plummets wise, 20 to 30 gram in it. Doesn't really matter. I'm using the 30 grams today. That's all we're going for. Now what I want to be doing is plumbing up, certainly with baits like, well, yeah, when we're on sort of like softer bottom, which it is now, cheeky, like silty bottoms, 1.5 inches to 2 inches over depth, certainly with baits like maggots, worms, casters, but in particular worms, I want to make sure that I am over depth. And as we get fishing, I'm going to show you the different ways that I'll hook a worm as well, which is quite important. So, get to my marker, which is that pole's halfway down my box. I've got a tree in the distance in the lovely dark water, and that's where I'm fishing. So you can see we're just at the bottom, if you like, of the body of the float. Now what is interesting on this peg, which is perfect, it goes slightly deeper out to my right. Yeah, so when I'm laying that rig in, I don't have to be overly concerned. That blooming wind. You see it just getting gradually deeper to my right. I don't have to be overly concerned about flicking the rig out. Just to give you an insight, if I do go a little bit further out, you see it's just getting that little bit deeper. See the float's disappearing. And then I come a little bit to my left and it just goes shallower. Yeah, so you can see that, it's just, oh, I bumped a fish then. Go on the fishies. It's just getting that little bit shallower when I come up to my left. But where I'm fishing, sort of like, that's going to be like 2 inches, if you like, over depth. Just wait for this car to go past. How dare they interrupt? Yeah, that's going to be 2 inches over depth. So what I'll be doing, I'll be laying the rig out that way, bringing it back and holding a tight line, so we've got like that nice curve. I've just bumped another fish then, folks. I'm bopping them all on the head, aren't I? I'm going to be scaring them all. So I'll get that plummet out of the way, but that's what we're looking for. Don't want to be like halfway down the float or anything like that. I can't wait to get fishing now. Before we do though, I'm going to show you the different ways of hooking the worm. So, I changed the way I hook worms sort of like a few years ago. Someone, I can't remember who told me, but what I always used to do when I was hooking the head of a worm was basically I'll get a worm and show you. Break the worm off at the egg sac here and then hook it through that bit. Don't do that anymore, folks. Obviously with the 16s hook, I want that visible all the time. I want that exposed, if you like. So what I'll do, I'll get the worm, on that JK, he's on it. I'll get the worm, give it a squeeze, and then go straight through, noisy geese, straight through the head of the worm like that. Yes, you can see all that hook's exposed there, and I'll break it off that bit. Don't waste the worm though, folks. Put it back in your tub, and that's what you're left with. That is my go-to sort of like way of hooking a worm, if you like. The only other difference would be if it was, you know, smaller fish or I suppose skimmers as well, then I'd go for the tail of a worm. Now I hook that, I'm going to put that one on, I'm leaving that there. So I'll get the worm. Now when I'm hooking the tail of a worm, what I'll do, I'll lay it on my knee like that, break about sort of 1.5 inches, 2 inches up the worm, break that off, put that worm back in there, and then I will hook that through the broken segment. Now the difference with that is, look at all that wriggle you've got. Don't hook a tail of a worm when there's loads of perch there, folks, because honestly, the perch will be like, wow, look at that wriggling, the vibrations. They're straight on it. But when there's like, certainly like bigger fish in your peg, tench, or, you know, obviously the Crucians and the bigger bream and skimmers, they love that. It's more visible for them, but don't do it when there's perch in your peg. I don't start off with that. As I say, I always start off with the head of a worm, which we're going to put back on. Can't waste worms, can we? Look at that. Bit slimy though. Right, so he's going back on. So start off on that, which will give you, you know, it's a good indicator of what's in your peg. You're going to catch every swimming on a little bit of worm like that. The next thing I'm going to do is put a pot on. Now, pot-wise, I've got a selection. We've got 3 pots. I'm going to start off on a big one, just to introduce a little bit more bait. And then what I'll do, I'll probably change to, rather than the medium one, I'll go for the small one first, just to see what's happening. If that's not working, I'm not attracting enough fish in my peg, I'll go to the medium. What I don't want to do is keep putting the big pot, the big amount of bait through, simply because we're not fishing shallow, we're fishing on the bottom. Potential for introducing too many fish in your peg. It's great, isn't it? Too many fish in your peg, but getting too many sort of liners and far lookers. So these two are the ones that I tend to go to more than anything, but starting off, I'll always use that bigger one. So that's what we're going to put on. Might only be on for, oh, I've just got the wrong blooming one out there, haven't I? Oh, incidentally, folks, yeah, let me show you. Riddle-wise, so that was a 4mm riddle that I put the ground bait through, yeah? So obviously straight out of the bucket, straight on that, push it all through, and it's a lovely damp consistency. Let me get a different pot out. Oh, for goodness sake, it's all gone to pot. I can't get me pots, Jakey. I can't get me pots. Let's just stick with that one then. I'll push it a bit further out. I'll retrieve them later. I've got the blooming paste pot, haven't I? Jakey's going in saving the day. Go on, Jakey. I'll move that for you, mate. Go on. He's here. He's here. Oh, he might not need to. I'm taking this one off again. Live, folks, this. You know what I mean? Never gets edited with me. Never gets edited with me. Right, let's get... That's the one. They are absolutely soaked, them pots, but it doesn't matter. And there's a pot stuck in that one there. Don't edit it. I don't want it editing. This is what happens. This is like real life fishing. Welcome to my world, folks. You know what I mean? So take that one off. Paste pot. I've got another paste pot out now, haven't I? So that one goes right on the end there, so we're nice and accurate. I've hooked myself as well, have I? No, I've not. And then what I'm going to do, so this bit here, now obviously that main bowl, I've put my little bit of worm in, I've put a few pellets in, and this, that and the other. I'm going to do the same again, and then after that I probably won't put worms in for a bit. So just let me ship out nice and quick while this is coming past. So again, I've got my little worm bomb. I'm going to put a few micros in, just a few grains of corn. Give it a press, and then shove it in there, and just, so that's what we're left with, yeah? So you're left with like a nice ball that's going to go straight down to the bottom. I only like to give it a light press. That bloody nearly fell out. What is going on, folks? Honestly, let me shove that back a bit more. Have you ever seen out like it? Have you ever seen anything like this? Right, here we go then. Oh, he's blooming, he keeps sitting down. Right, let's get that in then. So first things first, twist that round. Now, feeding wise, I'm going to go straight under, straight up, and give it a tap, and that comes straight out. So remember, we're putting that to the side and bringing that right over our feed. Hopefully it won't be too long. Not had a go or anything like that, folks, so this is like real time. There we go, we're on the bottom now. A couple of different ways of like laying it in, but when I'm on a slope, I'll just literally just lay it out to the side and then hold a tight line to it. I don't want to be sort of laying it out, bringing it back, then flopping it back over. I want that nice, tight arc or tight cave on the rig, if you like. Now, obviously, the beauty of like fishing with worms is the movement that you can put on the bait. So little tiny movements like that do make a difference sometimes, folks. You know what I mean? Straight away, then we had a little bite. Could have been a liner because we don't miss proper bites. But again, just lay it out to the side so it's nice and smooth, and hold a tight line to it. The same 5 foot. It doesn't take long to get down to the bottom. Just bear in mind, we had that bite last time, was off a little movement, so I'm not going to leave it as long this time before I move it. Sometimes it'll be little babby fish, you know, from a movement. So if you are getting lots of little tiny fish after a movement, certainly perch that are watching the bait, then just don't move it. Just literally just leave it. but usually that bit of movement does normally induce a bite. So already I'm thinking that one we put in them, that big pot was a bit too much. So I'm going to change pot sizes next. Oh, that was a little dink then. What's that going to be? It's going to be an id, a skimmer. What's it going to be, folks? It's just the beauty of this style of fishing. You don't know what it's going to be next. Absolutely, look at them for skimmery bobs. You just don't know what the fish is going to be next. It's amazing. Absolutely adore it. Look at that for straight away. It's just absolutely amazing fishing. Beautiful skimmery bob. Probably 9 or 10 ounce, something like that. He goes in the net. Now, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to leave that worm on. Obviously, just make sure it's hooked right though, because sometimes they might twist round. With slimy fish, obviously make sure there's no slime on your rig, on your line or anything like that. I'm going to get rid of that big pot. I'm going to go for this little bobby pot actually, because it's quite rich feed. You don't have to feed much. And what I will do, I will feed every time to start with, just until I start getting like the odd funny bite liner, or maybe foul hookers and that. Worms fell off that. Foul hookers, that's going to tell me that I need to maybe catch like 2 fish off one feed, or you know, put a big pot in and catch like 3 or 4 fish off it. You know, you've just got to obviously suss that out through the session yourself. So I was about to get that ready just before we hook that fish, and what I will do this next time is just put the bait in there so I'm ready for my next go in, if you like, so I'm not like doing what I did there, because obviously match conditions, I don't want to be wasting time. I just want to be straight in and making a little ball up. So again, get in position, it's there, under, up, give it a tap and it comes straight out, get your float right over it. So this time, this is what I mean. So I'm going to put a little bit more worm in this time, in the ground bait, a few pellets in, and then just a couple of grains of corn. So that's ready for my next go, that one. Look at that, it's poised, isn't it? Get a bit of movement. Oh, that was a little dink then. You can actually see we've got a little bit of an undertow on it actually, so it's blowing it back up the slope. Because the ground bait's like really overweight and beautiful, it's not gonna it's not gonna actually tow too much, but it does help sometimes if you're, you know, letting the rig go through, just to see where the fish are ending up. Always feed in the same spot, but certainly when there's undertow on sometimes, folks, it pays to let your rig you know, go through just to see where the fish are. But if you feed in the same spot, then what you can do, you can speed your catching up by going back to that same spot. Does that make sense? You know what I mean, don't you? So say the fish, you're catching them like a foot, 2 foot away from where you're feeding, just get straight on back onto that next time. So that's getting on for £1, 14 ounce, probably that one. Beautiful skimmers. I mean, there's not really, there's a few little babby fish in here, but not loads. I'm going to feed again every time, because at the minute, as I say, like a fish like that will nail that easy. Now obviously this is a quicker bit here, so I've got that little pile of bait there, straight in, nice and quick. Lay that out, get my marker, under, up, tap, float over, easy. Probably going to catch a few skimmers to start with, usually at first on your bait, and then, you know, different fish will start rocking up. You know, there's all sorts in here. Oh, that was something on the drop there. How good is this, folks? Right, because that one comes dead quick, I'm going to see what happens without feeding this time. I'm going to go straight in. I'd imagine they'd still want a little bit of bait, but obviously no one's competing for these fish today, folks. You know, I'm on my own. But you see the beauty of that elastic, we're not bumping the fish. Getting job done, setting the hook, getting a bit come out, lovely, but we're not bumping them. You see how you do a big weight, can't you, in short spaces? So I reckon where he's hooked, he's had that on the drop. Definitely just off bottom, I reckon he was. Because he's proper nailed it. I did have a little dink just before I stuck on that one as well, so get him out, but that's probably getting on for £1, that one. Worm's still on, nice and quick. So again, make sure there's no slime. straight out. I'm not going to feed this time, see what happens. Because for me, because we had that one on the drop, that bait that I've just fed will be on the bottom now. There's the fish on it, so we should hopefully get one fairly quick this time. Don't want to go too long though without feeding, do I, folks? So again, I'm just going to get, still got a little bit of worm in there. I'm going to bring them pellets through and then just put a couple of grains of corn in. So that's ready for my next one. Make a ball like that. There we go. Do you see what I mean? That might have been foul up, that one. Yeah. Oh, that was, it's foul up. So again, I probably won't feed this time because that's telling me, even already, you know, we're only a few minutes into the session, if you like, that, you know, potentially we're drawing too many fish into the peg simply because of how rich this bait is. That's what I mean. That's the beauty of the worm ground bait. You don't need a lot of it because it's so rich, and obviously with the aminos in there, it's attracting fish, and obviously with the micros as well, it's just phenomenal. Now, bearing in mind obviously match conditions, when everyone else is competing for them fish, then you do need to probably feed them all the time. But at the minute, we'll see what happens, because we lost that. If I'd lost that fish in my peg, then 100% I would have fed. But because we lost it out of our peg, it foul hooked, I'm just going to go straight back in and see what happens. You've seen how quick we're getting bites. If I don't get a bite within sort of 90 seconds, 2 minutes at the absolute most, I'm going to come back and put some more bait in. But, oh, see, we had a missed bite then. I was going to say, I'm convinced I'd still get a bite. There's still going to be some bait left there. I've got my little ball there ready to go. Even though I've squeezed it into a little bit of a ball, folks, as soon as that sort of like gets down towards the bottom, it will start breaking out. That's the beauty of the ground bait. See, there's an indication there. That float's just lifted up a little bit. Fish coming into the swim. Go on then, have it. It's just a phenomenal way of fishing. There we go. So that's something different. That might be a Crucian. That might be a Crucian. There's species number 2, folks. Now the Crucian are a little brown goldfish or something. Definitely not a Thomas. Oh, we've got a Colin, haven't we? Come on, be a Colin. There's a load of brown goldfish in now, folks. Is it going to be a Colin? Where's he going? Where's he going? He's trying to do me in the blooming reeds. Oh, it is a Thomas. Blooming hell, he didn't fight like a Thomas to start with. Thomases are normally like proper angry and just like, look at that little beauty there. Look. Oh, God, Thomas. Oh, Jakey's like giving me evils behind this camera. He so wants to go. He so wants to go. Look at this, folks. Oh, my days. Jakey getting on that as well. That is pure 10 out of 10 right there. You've never seen hooking like that in your life, folks. Look at that. Joint 3rd bestest fish in the whole wide world right there, folks. Thomas the Tench, absolutely adore them. They're just amazing. Absolutely, just takes you back to, and I suppose this style of fishing as well, just takes you back to like childhood for me. You know what I mean? Going on these little baby farm ponds, which this is sort of similar. This Drumble Lake. This is why I love it so much. And just like when your float goes under, you don't know what it's going to be. For me, fishing doesn't get any better than this, and this is why I love fishing this way. Oh, folks, it's just absolutely amazing. So nice and quick again. Still got the same worm on, so I think we're on to 4 fish with the same bit of worm now. So again, line that up. I'm convinced that were a Crucian the way it went. Crucian normally like swim round the circles, get that little bit of a judder. The Tench on here are usually a little bit bigger, to be fair. I'd be fair. Right, come on, so straight on that ball of ground bait. Let's see what we catch this time. Oh, go on then. Somewhat thought about it. Usually I like the little baby perch are the first to catch. Incidentally, if it does start to go a little bit quieter, then obviously that's signs of, you know, potential bigger fish moving in, or you're just not putting enough bait in. Simple as that. But at the minute, there's a fish there now. Wow, it was a little bit of a liner then. Move that out to the side. But at the minute, I'd say with our feeding, it's perfect. As I say, it's very, very rich, that ground bait. Brilliant for it, for what we want to achieve. Put a few more micros in there. Make a little bit of a doink. There you go. My ball ready for next time. What I would do, sort of like if I did hook like a big fish that was, oh, I definitely had a fish. I definitely bumped a fish then. It wasn't a branch, folks, promise. That's the thing with undertow though. Obviously it'd be blowing stuff through. I'm going to feed this time because that's just disturbed it. I did bump one in my peg then, so I'm going to feed this time. I don't know what I was on about before. I'm getting too giddy now, folks. I can't remember what we were talking about before. We're going to lay that out to the side. In, up, splash, float right over it. It's such an accurate way of fishing, but effective. It's so good. Come on, let's catch at least another 1 species, hopefully another 2. And then you need to get out and give it a go yourselves, don't you? You lovely lot, 'cause it's so good. Yeah, anything you can imagine swimming, we'll eat what we're fishing with today. It's just, so I can see my groundbait fizzing about a foot. Oh, I'm going to strike then. I can see it fizzing about a foot to the left, so I'm just letting it go through with the undertow this time. I'm not going to hold back. See them little dinks on the float there? You know, that's usually what you get with Crucians. Don't want to strike. I'm letting it drift through, so I'm coming off my marker a little bit, but I can see where, oh, stop putting me off. I can see where that groundbait's fizzing. So it's travelled about, well, the groundbait's not going to travel, obviously, because that's going straight down to the bottom, but the little bits like the oils and that, they will travel and obviously come up in a different part of your peg from the undertow. The actual main groundbait itself is going straight down where I'm fishing. But it's just obviously the oils and that are travelling with the undertow. So it does pay to let it go through with the tow every now and again. But obviously if it's still, then just hold it right over your bait. Which that is now, right over the bait. Give it a little bit of a movement. There we go. What's that? Is it another Thomas? That might be it. This is what Thomases normally like. Yeah. So right, in that instant then, what I'd do is pick a ball up and just chuck it in. Yeah? Don't have to be overly accurate, because the accuracy comes when you're fishing with your pot. But the fact that I've put that ball in now, the fish that are spooked by that Thomas going absolutely nuts, it's getting them back into the swim. So just bear that in mind. Obviously we've not got loose feed to put in, so that's why you just need to make that little bit of a commotion with your bait. Ah, oh, how good is this? Can't tell you. It's just, for me, I don't think, obviously online fishing folks, you know how much I love that, but for me, pole fishing wise, this, catching everything swimming, oh, it doesn't get any better. Literally does not get any better. Come on. There's some massive Crucians in. Well, it's a massive, up to £2. I think this is a Tench, but I was wrong last time. It might be a Crucian. Crucians normally swim around in circles by now. I'm gonna go for a bigger Thomas. Come on. That might be one of them brown goldfish. Come on, come on. I don't even know what it was. I think it was another Thomas. Nobody likes to see him fall off, do they? Nobody. Never mind, folks, there's plenty more there. So even though I've thrown that ball in, obviously to attract them, I'm still gonna feed nice and accurate through the pot. So I've still got a little bit of bait in there, still got some micros in there, a little tiny bit of worm. I always lose one, don't I, when I'm blooming filming? I don't think I've ever done a filming and not lost one. This is what happens, folks. You know what I mean? There we go. In, out to the side, then hold that float right over the bait. So it looks as though obviously them early skimmers, they've gone now, and the Thomases have moved in. That was definitely another Tench, that. Bit bigger one. Fell off. Blooming fell off. Another little dink there. But instead, I'll only feed like that if I've got a big fish on that's taking me time, or I get a fish that charges back through my swim. Because it'll sort of like spook the other fish that are around it. So I need to feed to attract them fish back. Bit of encouragement. Go on then. Go on then. Get ready for my next one. A bit of worming. A couple of bits of corn. Bit of encouragement. Staying lovely now. That was a slow bite. That's going to be a skimmer or something, isn't it? It might not be. I ain't got a clue in my blooming species ever, folks. I'm saying one thing and it's another. So, because that swam out of my peg lovely, I'm not going to feed this next time and see what happens. Again, I'll let the fish tell me. If we don't get a bite quick, then, you know we need to feed again. What's it going to be? I ain't got a clue what it is. It's a Crucian, but it didn't fall. Oh, folks, how good is it? Look at that. When was the last time, folks, you saw Oh, Crucians like that. They're just, let this car go. I'll talk you through. Look at that. But that's the stamp of Crucians you can expect in here. Drumble Lake at Cudmore. They're just absolutely superb. They're all like that. There's no little babby ones. So I've had like the joint third bestest fish in the world in the last two chucks. Crucian and a Tench. For me, folks, they could quite easily be number one. They're like the first carp that you ever caught, aren't they, Crucians? They're just amazing. But normally they swim round in circles and like spit water out at you and like wave the fins at you. That just didn't behave like a Crucian at all. I could sit here like for hours. I know the fish wouldn't appreciate it and just admire them. I think they're just Crucians. You don't catch Crucians like that anymore. You know what I mean? It's hard to find lakes where there's true Crucians in. Now, because I have been waffling, I should feed again, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to see what happens. But it just shows you already, you know, what I've been fishing, what, 20 minutes or so, 15, 20 minutes. Skimmers, Tench, Crucians. There's so many other different species in as well, folks. We'll try and catch one more different one. Like there's some big ids in here. Obviously, ids like the loose feed, but there's big ids, there's barbel, obviously carp, gudgeons, perch, roach, hybrids. What else is there? There's goldfish, there's brown goldfish, there's F1s. What's this? It's going to be another skimmer. Yeah, so the skimmers have rocked up back again now. It's just don't know what it's going to be when your float goes under. How good is it? So I'm definitely, obviously I mean, they're all a good size, aren't they? There's no little babby fish, folks. So I'm definitely not going to go in now and not feed. I need to feed. Certainly don't want to let like two fish go by without feeding, so leave that worm on. I'm going to feed again this time. I've got my little ball ready. TK. That goes in there. But obviously this is where, you know, certainly when the Crucians and the Tench rock up, well, on the skimmers actually, that's where the corn comes into it. I'm convinced with just putting that, like a few grains of corn in, just keep them fish in your peg a little bit longer. Obviously the weight of it, and it does like get them bigger fish grubbing around a little bit better as well. Come on, let's see if we can catch another species. We've had 3. So many in here. But like you'll go to different venues, like you might have only been to and only fish like one particular way, like on pellets or something like that. And it's not opening up the true potential for like what the lakes are capable of. There's so many different species in these lakes now. I mean, obviously match conditions, you know, yeah, you might need the bigger fish, the F1s, a carp, but this is where like a backup line can come into it in matches, you know, a midpoint in the match where, you know, it starts to go quiet. So nip on a line like this and catch everything swimming. You know, them extra few pounds and even ounces sometimes can make all the difference, and that's what you'll get by fishing this way. It's just superb. Unlock the potential of the lakes that you're fishing. That's what I'm going to say, and that's what worms does. That's what worms allows you. Everything swimming in the whole wide world. Now we're getting a few liners now, because I didn't feed that time. So next time I need to pin that bait obviously down to the bottom. Try and pin them fish down to the bottom. Or it might be, you know, different species coming in. It might be some roach coming in there, or big ids or something like that. Or it could be them pesky Crucians. Didn't fight like a Crucian, that one that we had before. Oh yeah, there's another species, is it? I'm going to say Gary the Goujon. No, it's fine. No, Gary the Goujon. No, it's a bitch, another species. Obviously, so like I did put worm in that time, so when you're catching little babby ones like that, I mean obviously all fish are beautiful. Match conditions, you wouldn't necessarily want little babby, unless it was like a right hard winter's day, then you'd want little babby ones like that. But for like a pleasure session, you don't necessarily want little babby perches like that. You want the grap big ones, you know what I mean, but you don't necessarily want little babby ones. So what I'll do for a bit is just knock the worms out, you know, the chopped worms that I'm putting in. That's why you don't need loads, you know, that'll last you hours, you know what I mean, that much worm there, because you're only putting a pinch in. As soon as you start getting them fish, that's when I'm going to knock it out. Now I was about to go on to tail of a worm, just see if there's any difference, but because we've had that little perch then, I'm not. I'm going to go on with a worm head, and if we catch another decent fish, I'll put a worm tail on. I'm not going to put any worm in my ground bait this time. Still put a few micros in. It's got 1 grain of corn in there as well. What I'm going to see, if I catch a decent fish this time, worm head, we'll put worm tail on, just for that bit more you know, obviously vibration, as I showed you before, sometimes you'll get a quicker bite. Incidentally, that's important as well. So you saw them, let me see if I can replicate that and see if Jakey can get on it. With worms, sometimes what can happen when you're shipping out quick, what can happen is that worm will spin up. I don't know if you can see it spinning there, but what can happen, it can sometimes spin up. So what you need to do is just leave it sort of 3 or 4 seconds before you lay the rig in. Otherwise it'll be spinning up under the water. So just make sure that everything's nice and smooth when you're laying it in. Add a bit of spinach that time. Right, so see what we get this time. And then I'm going to put a worm tail on. Just because that bit more vibration and activity, sometimes you get quicker bites off it. Ooh. Look like a little pesky perch again, that. So if you do get a nest of perch obviously wobbling in, you've just got to ride them out. Drop the worm content of a little bit of chopped worm, maybe try corn, you know what I mean? And then we'll see what happens. Shouldn't last too long on here, they don't normally. They ain't got time to because everything else coming in. I think what's happening, because we're a little bit over depth, that rig's just coming back against the slope and it's just sinking. That's my excuse anyway, folks. You know what I mean? It was a proper bite really, but I just thought I'd make an excuse up. It was a proper bite. Right, go on, that's better. Here we go then. Yeah, so skimmer that. Or is it? I'm not going to say it's a skimmer because I was wrong last time. Skimmer in it. Definitely a skimmer. Definitely a skimmer. Right, so I'm going to put a worm tail on now, just see if there's any difference. A little babby skimmer. Well, they're not little and babby actually. You know what I mean? It's still sort of like 7-8 ounces if you like. Right, so take that worm head off. And then this time, I showed you before, but I'll show you again. Basically, get the worm out on your knee. So I want to break about an inch, inch and a half off. Break it off there. And I'm hooking it back through that broken bit. So you've got all that wriggle and vibration in the worm. I'm not going to feed this time. I'm going to use that worm because of all that activity. See what happens, see if we can get a quicker bite. Usually do. If it's a page, I'm going to stick back in the worm head, but normally you get a bit of a quicker bite. Oh, that's what we need, isn't it? Is that affecting you, that, Jakey? No, that's all right. Right, so on the bottom, so you should get, as I said, quicker bite just with them vibrations and activity of that worm tail. Come on then. Imagine what it's doing under the water. No, I thought I'd have had a bite by now, to be fair. Usually it's a lot quicker, just something for them to home in on, normally. It's just experiment throughout the day. No, so for me, worm head's better at the minute. But like later on into the session, worm tail might be much better. Plus it might be the fact that I didn't feed this time as well. You know, that bait could have been wiped out. Even a skimmer like the size that we just had will soon. Oh, yeah. What's that? I thought it was going to be a jumper then. I don't know what it is. I thought it was going to be a jumper though, whatever it was. Yeah, even a skimmer like the size that we just had before, that little babby one, it'll still nail all that bait. Oh, it's a nicer skimmer. So a little bit bigger fish, you know, on a worm tail. I thought we'd get a quicker bite, but as I said before, it can sometimes produce slightly bigger fish, which that one definitely is. Oh, he's got his spawning tubercles on it. I say this is why they love worms and that rich bait this time of year, folks, because when they start spawning, getting on that, Jakey. Yeah, the spawning tubercles on the red. That's why they love it, like that high protein bait. You know, meat's another fantastic bait as well. It's having a plop on me. Is that groundbait coming out of it already? Looks like it, doesn't it? You see that, Jakey? Yeah. Yep. So yeah, a little bit of a bigger fish on a worm tail. He's going in. I'm going to feed this time. Oh, my worm tails fell off. Worm tails fell off. Let's get another worm tail on. Like that. A little bit longer weight, but bigger fish. No slime on. There's my bait. Bit of corn in. The reason I do like to use a small pot, because as I said before, in fact I'll wait for that to stop. Yeah, the reason I'm using a smaller pot, not the medium one, because as I said before, how rich this bait is so I'm not overfeeding the peg. Because obviously even a medium one, when you're making that ball up, you can sometimes put too much feed in. So by obviously restricting yourself and putting a small pot on, because I do love to feed, it does help you in that respect. So what I'm doing, making a tiny ball out of it and just sort of like giving it a little squeeze in them fingers there, making a ball and then forcing it into the pot. So it goes straight down to where I'm fishing and but breaks up very, very quickly. So I'll feed this time, see how quick it takes to get a bite. Go on the fishes. So I'm just letting that float drift with the toe again now, just to see if the fish, you know, drifted out of the peg a little bit, which can definitely 100% happen when there's a bit of toe on it. Don't just take it for granted you fish on this spot all the time. Spot, not spot. Do let it drift with the toe. So it has gone quieter now. Let's just see if it's that worm tail that's making the difference, or I'm going to see if that worm tail is making the difference, or it might be that there's just something big moved in. I'm not going to feed because we didn't get really any signs then. I'm convinced that that bait will still be there. So back on with the worm head. See if we can get a bite quicker. Go on, fishies. So if there's anything like last time, then obviously it's much quicker on wormhead. Just got to play about that through the day, see what's best on the day. Every day is different. You know, some days a little bit of corn will be best, because there might be too many sort of like, there you go, yeah, wormhead's miles better, isn't it? Because there might be too many little babby fish there, like perch and that, on worms. So you put a bit of corn on, it makes all the difference. It's another decent skimmer. Oh, look at these folks, look at them. That's one more. I reckon that's another spawny one. Oh, it's big on my worm as well. How dare he big on my worm. He's going in there. Catch one more. And then I'm going to turn around to you lovely lot and give you a little end message, I reckon. So I've still got my corn in there, a little bit of micros. Tiny bit, so that's all I'm doing. I've not shown you, have I? So all I'm doing when I'm getting I mean, look how much ground bait's left there. There's loads left, isn't there? So that little ball, all I'm doing to create that is I get me bait in a pile, like I'm doing. So a few micros in there, a couple of grains of corn. Yes, in that little pile there. I'm going in with these fingers. Yes, I've got that, and I'm just forcing it into a ball there. And then obviously you make it into a ball just by moulding it into your hand, put it in the pot, and away you go. So you can see there, we've got them few little micros in there, 2 bits of corn, and that ground bait, with how it is, obviously it's breaking up pretty much as soon as it gets down to the bottom. Absolutely perfect it is. I can't believe how much, like literally a pint of bait. So it just shows you, obviously, a big bag like that, how much, or how many sessions you can have rather. You know what I mean? It's such a cheap and effective way of fishing. It really is. Right, so bait in, just goes in lovely, doesn't it? You know what I mean? Wait for that worm to stop spinning. There we go. Right, one more. In fact, no. You know what? I'm going to try a bit of corn after this one. Catch one more on worm, one more on corn. Might take a little bit longer to get a bite, but should be a bigger fish. And it'll be interesting for me to show you how I hook the corn as well. So many different ways of hooking corn, but I've got the way I hook it, I've hooked it for years and years. I'll show you. Bit of encouragement. Go on then. Oh, there's one there. So that float lift a little bit then. Go on then. Just letting it drift again. Go on, the fishies. Just thinking about it. Bit of encouragement. Come on. It's mad, isn't it? Even though we're hardly waiting at all, with how fast and, you know, sort of furious, if you like, it has been, even just waiting that extra sort of like minute gets you really impatient. Oh, we had a lift bite then, and we foul up that one. See, there's a little scale on that hook. Just had a bit of a lift bite then, so again, I'm not going to feed this time. Little babby scale on my hook. It was out of my peg because it's like drifted a bit of about a foot to the left. I didn't bump it over where I'm fishing, so go straight on my feed. Yeah, what was I saying? So we only waited like an extra minute, if you like, on that bite, but it seems like a lifetime because obviously when you're getting bites so quick, it's mad what a difference it makes, and that can make you do silly things sometimes, you know. Put more bait in, obviously that can potentially ruin your peg, so you've just got to stick with it really. What I would say, certainly 5 minutes at the most, 4 or 5 minutes if you like. If you've not had a bite, you've got to come back and feed it. I'm not going to let it drift this time, I'm going to hold it on my marker. See if we can get one there. Come on. Look at that, sat lovely in it. Absolutely perfect. Incidentally, I've got a tiny bit of grease, sort of like 5mm down the bristle, just to hold it in place. There we go. Didn't take long to hold it out. That might be another different, is that a different one? That Tommy? Well, it's gone right over my blooming bait. We'll put a bit of ground bait in there. Simply because it went right over my bait, folks, that's why I've done it. It's got to be a Thomas on it. So what I'm going to do this time, I'm going to put corn on. I'm going to show you how to hook the corn. Even though obviously with how it's going, certainly if I was fishing on, I probably wouldn't be on corn until like last knockings kind of thing, or unless I was getting a little babby fish like perch and that. But I'm going to put corn on. I don't know what I'm going to go for, because it'll probably fall off again. I'll say it's like a Crucian or a Carp. Yeah, it's like a little brown goldfish thing. So that's another species. Like these are bred in here, these folks. They've not been put in. It's like, this is the trouble with like trying to get true Crucians now, because obviously the Crucians breed with the Carp. That's exactly what this is. It's like a brown goldfish fantail. Look at that, it's beautiful, isn't it? Like a brown goldfish fantail thing. Look at the state of that. Now we did put loads of goldfish in here quite a few years ago, and obviously that's what's bred with them. You know what I mean? But absolutely stunning fish. Brown goldfish hybridy Crucian-y thing that is. That's another species. How many up to now? 5? Up to 5 species, Jakey? I think we're up to 5, aren't we? So many more, folks. Right. So that's the worm. I wouldn't change anything. Fishing on worm, catch everything swimming. But as I've said a few times, if you are getting mad with them little pesky perch and goujons and stuff like that, try a bit of corn. Now, there's loads of different sort of grades of corn and what have you. The beauty of this F1 corn is there's lots more sort of smaller bits, which is perfect for the hook. Hair rigging wise, on the ledger bomb, I'll be on like straight biggin like that, but for my pole, I want to choose one of these nice little tiny pieces here, so we'll go for that one. Now hooking it, basically all I'm doing, you on that, JK? He's on it, is literally straight through the top, nick it and out. Yeah, because corn's quite a tough bait, you want to make sure your hook comes through it. Occasionally, you know, obviously when you do strike, the corn won't come off, so you just straight back in, but I don't know whether you want that. I think you want the corn coming off, so you're coming back, putting it on again, because then you know you've hooked it right, if that makes sense. So just nick it through the top, and that's how I hook the corn for the pole. So again, put some more bait in, because I've been waffling for a bit. I'd imagine it'd take a little bit longer to get a bite, but it'll be fish like that we've just had. That's what we're going to be catching on corn, or bigger skimmers. We're probably going to catch a blooming goose, I know I've said that, aren't I? There we go, in. So yeah, I'm fully expecting a little bit longer for a bite, but it should be a different fish. Just to show you the effectiveness of corn. I'm going to catch a blooming perch or gudgeon on it, I know I am. Here's me telling you to like put corn on to avoid the small fish. Typical, innit? Right, so you can see like a foot to the left of that where that ground bait's fizzing. But that's not the actual ground bait, the main ground bait. As I said, that's like the oils and that, the scent, if you like, of the ground bait. That's what's coming up out of my peg. Because there's no toe on that. You see, I've let all resistance go. It's staying there. So that's just getting what's getting blown through, if you like. So you see, we are waiting a little bit longer. But, come on, it's going to be a bigger fish. I'm not going to move it. I'm not going to lift and drop on this one, rather. Just going to leave it. Bigger fish jumped out there then. Oh, we we bumped it, we bumped one. Right, so in that instance then, we come back, we feed it again. Like I said, that was a skimmer. Let's rehook that corn, it just come out a little bit. A couple of bits of corn in there. Like I said, that was 100% a little babby skimmer. It took that a little bit longer. Then go in. Perfect presentation, folks, isn't it? So accurate. And obviously we're fishing out today, you know, out in, you know, the deeper water if you like, but by all means get yourselves in the margins, you know, later on in the day, doing the exact same thing. Obviously scale your float down, what have you, but you'll have superb days there. Just where the fish want to be. Right, come on, let's get this one on corn to end. Come on. Oh, there's a little dink then. Crucian. Crucian that, folks, 100%. Definite Crucian. Or it could have been a skimmer, or a tench, or a barbel, or a carp, or a brown goldfish, or Crucian, or a perch. Who knows? I'm going for Crucian now, because of how finicky it was. Definitely. Excuse the noise. Excuse the noise. There we go, the noise is past. So you see how much like longer it's taking on corn, yeah? Obviously me being, pleasure fishing wise, you know, because it's going to be a better fish, then yeah, brilliant. But me being a match angler, I'm too impatient. I can't be waiting this long when I've been catching so quick on worms, so obviously I wouldn't be on corn now, but I want to show you that you can still catch on corn. And I'm convinced you need it, as I say, in your bait, because it just brings them bigger fish in and keeps them in your peg. Oh, that was another Crucian bite. Come on. This is the thing with blooming corn. How many would have had on worm now? Probably had another 3 or 4 fish. But as it is, in fact, I'm going to prove to you that the fish haven't gone. It's just that we're not on the. Oh, yeah. In fact, I'm going to prove it to you. Fish haven't gone. It's just that we're not on the right hook bait at the right time, if you like. Obviously, I speed these up for you all the time, folks, as you know. You know what I mean? And me being a match angler, I'm too blooming impatient, so I'm going to go back to a worm and show you that you haven't gone anywhere. They're still there. We just need to be on the right hook bait for them, which is wind. Feed this time because we haven't fed for a bit. That's it. Minute. That's all it's getting. No longer than a minute. Straight in. Go on then. There we go. See what I mean? That's the difference. We're like, fish haven't gone anywhere. It's just that obviously we're not on the right bait for the right time for the right species of fish. Simple as that. But 100%, folks, you've got to put that corn in because it will attract the bigger fish and, more importantly, keep them in your peg. So we're finishing off on a skimmer. Well, I'm not finishing, folks. I'm carrying on because I'm going to catch some more species of fish. There's roach and nids to be caught and everything, yeah. But that has been one of the best sessions I've had in a long time. You know, for the time it's taken to like put a pretty decent weight of fish together. It just shows you the effectiveness of obviously worms, but on a budget. You know, you don't need to spend a lot of bait. Look how much ground bait we've got left, for goodness sake. You know what I mean? We've only been fishing, what, 40 minutes? There's probably another, I'm gonna say 3 hours worth of fishing left in that ground bait. Obviously all them pellets left as well. You know what I mean? Replicate it again the day after. Put them in an airtight bag or container or something. No problem at all using that for another day or two at least. As long as you keep them in the fridge, somewhere damp, somewhere sort of like dark and what have you, nice and cool, they'll be absolutely perfect. But folks, honestly, get out and try it. Early season spring fishing, worms, bit of corn, bit of ground bait, bit of Marcos, you'll have the best days fishing ever. Get on it, folks. Yeah!